Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe vom SI Talk. Ich bin ja jetzt gerade in Toronto. Es ist zum Glück nicht so kalt wie erwartet. Es hat keine minus 25 Grad, es hat nur minus 10. Also richtig warm. Und ich habe mich heute mit einem anderen Newsletter-Schreiber getroffen, und zwar aus einem einfachen Grund. Er ist Spezialist auf dem Cannabis-Markt. Er macht zwar einen Gold-Newsletter auch noch, aber Cannabis wieder gerade stark oder die erste Welle kommt. Es gibt auch jetzt in Deutschland die Überlegungen, dass das legalisiert wird, im Medical Marijuana-Sektor. Und von daher ist natürlich interessant zu sehen, wie die Kanadier bzw. Nordamerikaner mit dem Markt umgehen, die ja doch schon deutlich mehr Erfahrung haben. Vin, thank you. Do you have time for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sorry that I interrupted so quick that we can set up this meeting. So, but we talked a little bit before. Germany, cannabis stocks are going a little bit hot.
Right.
Especially in Germany, there is also a discussion that the government allowed also a kind of medical marijuana, the same way where we have here in North America, in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for me, it's now interesting how the cannabis sector is working here, especially. Maybe you can give us a small overview what Canada and maybe US does in the past, in which stage they are. Is it now legal? Is it not legal? When they're coming up with it is legal and so on, and
Sure.
maybe the difference also between Canada and US system.
Okay.
So.
Sure. Okay. Well, in Canada, medical marijuana was legal since I think it was 2001 under an old program called MMAR.
Okay.
In 2013, they started, or 2014, they announced that they were going to commercialize the industry and take away the opportunity to have medical cannabis grown from independents that were growing for themselves and maybe a few other medical patients to more of a commercialized industry. So that took place in March of last year in 2014. And as a result, a lot of these companies put in applications, they got approved. They have larger facilities, it's more security around the industry. And so the move from the independent small grower to the commercial larger scale grower has been in place. Now there's a court injunction trying to go on right now with the smaller growers still wanting to continue. But we'll see, that's being tried right now. Either way, I think the industry in Canada is moving forward from the smaller growers to the commercialized, and that trend will continue. So, and that has been in place. There's about 16 companies that are authorized to grow and distribute, and then another 5 or 6 which are also can only grow and then has to go through one of the other companies. So, last year there were 800-900 applicants in the pool. Obviously that is way too many for the Canadian market. And Health Canada has put in a lot of rules, regulations, and what guidelines they're looking for applicants around it. So realistically, as the years go on, I really only see maybe 30, 40, 50 companies that will be allowed, and it'd be more than enough for the marketplace unless Canada goes to the same model where they allow recreational sales. Okay. At which point I suspect the industry grows tenfold immediately. Okay. In the US, it's a little different. I mean, each state, federally, it's still illegal. But at the state level, they've been allowed to make their own decisions on medical marijuana and whether they want the state to approve for sales and distribution of the product. There's 4 states that are actually allow recreational as well. So it's Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, Alaska just did it. And there's probably, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think 20 or so states that have allowed medical grow. Okay. So there is a big difference between Canada and US in terms of how they approach the market. Okay. So maybe get into a little bit of that and discuss that. In Canada, what's happened is as a result of this MMPR program, the new one with the commercialization of the industry, they have allowed these larger growers only to grow or sell dried products, so dried flower products. Okay. Whereas the US, the states, the individual state level, they determine, what products can be offered by the market.
Okay.
So besides the dried flowers, you're starting to see a lot of companies in the U.S. start to build, oils, tinctures, lozenges, patches, pills. So in terms of a medical product, there is a big difference because in Canada, with the dried product, not many medical patients want to smoke cannabis, right?
Okay.
And in terms of delivery, I guess the science will have to determine which is the best method to ingest the medical, cannabinoids and THC and CBDs that do come out of the plant that are the medical side of it. The science will really determine which is the best product for delivery into the body system. But at the end of the day, it does make more sense to offer the medicine in other forms outside of a dried plant, which is where I see Canada being hindered versus the U.S. in terms of opportunities. And just with, for example, oils is a very big medical product, and children can digest it more easily, and that's why you've seen a strain called Charlotte's Web, which is all CBD and very, very little. You wouldn't notice any THC, which is the psychoactive component that makes you get high. So as the industry continues to evolve and you start to see more states in the U.S. or even countries around the world, I think the trend will be for, on the medical side, to move towards these oil-based products or pills and stuff like that. Canada doesn't allow it. Hopefully Health Canada changes that, because it does make sense to offer it as a product. Especially when you're thinking on medical function, and it's much easier to have an oil or a patch or whatever. Right, and that's where I actually see the exciting opportunities in this industry is over the last year and a half that I started exploring and discovering and evaluating companies in the sector in general. You start to see, talking to all of these companies and the various growers, and every company has told me we have the best master grower, or we have the best scientists on board and stuff like that. Great, but at the end of the day, it is a plant. A grower who is very knowledgeable can grow a great product. So how do you differentiate between one company or another in terms of, who's the best grower? Is going to be very hard to determine. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's just a plant. You're growing it, you're drying it, and everyone will have a same product. The challenge I see is when doctors are going now to have prescriptions, how is he going to determine between what strains, and there's hundreds of strains that these growers are growing, what's best for what ailment? I mean, that's getting discovered, but for a doctor to go and say, this strain or this product, AK-47 or you name it, it's great for this, they'll have a harder time to do that. Whereas I see if you come out with an oil-based or a pill-based product and it's been tested and certified and FDA approved or approved through laboratory testing, the amounts of THC, the amounts of CBD, and it really makes it very simple and standardized. And that's where I think the doctors will appreciate it, going, here's 5 or 6 different types of products for epilepsy, let's say. And we recommend this one for your situation. Whereas it would be much harder to say, which strain from which producer. Yeah, I understand. Coming back to the investment sector. Sure. So we won't make money on it. That's our reason why we sit together and say how we can find out that we can make money on a medical marijuana business. So what is your point of view, the best way at the moment, and the best valuation what you get, and what should the investors look for? Sure. Well, there was an index out there that is still there, and back in 2013, that index was sitting at around 100 points. Okay. The rush came into the sector starting at the end of 2013, early 2014, and it peaked out. That index peaked out at 1,000 points, 1,010, I think it was. So you went from 100 and change to 1,010. That was a tenfold increase. Huge. Now, a lot of that was hype, speculation, very tight market share structures. So if a company who had a tight share structure announced anything with marijuana in it, everyone excited, they bid it up. They didn't consider the valuation or what this company was doing. It was just pure speculation and hype. Now, since March, that index has come right back down to that same, 100 level or so. So it's, as we're at the resource conference and we talked about precious metals and resources not having a good couple of years, well, investors who probably invested at the peak of marijuana are not enjoying it right now. But the fact is, if you take that speculative wave out and you're come back to a normalized market, now is actually the most opportune time to be looking at the sector because the valuations are realistic.
Okay.
Still a little frothy, but it is what it is, what the market wants. But you can take this longer-term approach now because the speculative fever's gone out of it and start to evaluate the companies and see which ones are going to emerge as industry leaders. You have that time luxury where I don't think we're going to see that rush again in stock price over the next couple of years. But as companies build their businesses and build a brand and get awareness, then that's where the value starts coming in. And if you can identify those companies, that's where the opportunity is.
What you are looking for the growers or the companies maybe they take the flowers and build a product out of it? Right. What is your favorite?
Actually both, and I think it makes sense to have a diversified approach.
Okay.
Just like any investments anyone would make, It makes absolute sense. So, take a look at the growers. In the U.S., it's still a little challenging to invest with the growers because at the federal level it's still illegal, so not a lot of them are publicly traded. They're more private companies, but they may have some sort of public-private partnership with a publicly traded company where the publicly traded company owns the property, the real estate, and that's traded. But the actual cultivation side is still a little questionable. So have that diversified approach between the growers, companies that are building brands that are international brands at some point they'll become. I think those are exciting. The vertical or the ancillary market, so companies that are offering products, services for these cultivation facilities, I think great opportunities there. In terms of what I look for, obviously, for most investors that have access to a trading account, you want to look at the publicly traded companies. But I see the best opportunities are companies that are still private, building that business or brand, and then are looking towards moving towards a public listing in the future. Because, I wrote about this a little while ago and what I saw a lot of these publicly traded companies do, and and it's sad to say it happens all over the place, but the management, builds this business. They issue a lot of shares to themselves at cheaper prices. They do an offering at a higher price, and then by the time the public comes in and sees this company, the price has already increased multiple folds. And I really question where the value is for the investor at that time. Whereas you can get a company who's still private, building, has great management, the products, whatever. For accredited investors or those kinds of companies, that's where I see an exciting opportunity, and it's something we cover in our newsletter too. Okay,
coming to my last question is, and hopefully we can do an interview maybe in 6-9 months again. So, but do you have one favorite stock or two favorite stock what you think that people should look at?
Oh wow.
And they are still traded on the market, so it's not a private company.
I don't know if I have a favorite stock because I don't believe there's any one company that's an emerging leader.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at the cultivators, the growers in Canada, there's quite a few that are already publicly traded. I'm not so bullish on the Canadian market because of the dried flower product. But in terms of...
Is it possible that the Canadian growers can sell it also in the US? Or is it not allowed?
At the moment, I don't believe there is an export model for it.
Okay.
Canada has actually allowed an import model. So you've seen a company like BedroCan, for example, who is growing in Europe, and they've been doing this for quite a while. They've got a licensed Canada. So when they started selling in Canada, they actually had to ship in dried product or flowered product and sell it through there. Now they do have a facility that's been built out, and I think it's ready to grow, and they're going to be... So companies in Canada, if you're looking for the grower side, absolutely, there's quite a few of them on there. So between Tweed, BedroCan, Organogram, any of those, but they're all kind of in a sideways trading range, let's call it. So as an investment, I don't know if I'd want to hold them as a long-term investment, but if you understand support and resistance and technical trading, sure, trade the market. Why not?
Perfect. And from the other, not grower side, so from the maybe more brand side, or is there not really a brand outside that, or you see the first sign that the company coming up with the first brands?
Well, there's quite a few. Privateer did an investment and with Bob Marley's family to make Marley Naturals, sorry. And that product should be out. There's a few others that I know of, and I really can't speak about it right now because I'm under NDA and stuff like this. But it will be coming out, and I'm really excited about those companies. Really take a look at the ancillary markets, because at the end of the day, when we had the gold rush, let's call it, it was the companies that were making the picks and shovels that did extremely well.
Absolutely.
That's why I say diversified and look for companies that are offering those kinds of services. And there's one, again, it's private. Eventually, I think they're talking about going on a public listing, but it's something I'm looking at right now for accredited investors to take a look at, because it's a software company that makes software the industry needs to seed to sale, and eventually, if I believe they're one of the industry leaders. Hopefully, they go public, and investors can participate in those kinds of companies, which I find exciting.
Okay, and now really my final question is: when somebody want more information about the medical marijuana sector, what is your website, or what is your newsletter name that they can find more information?
Sure, we have a public website. It's called Invest in MJ. So investinmj.com. So we have company directories, news releases, information. Really don't put in my own analysis on individual companies on that, because we have a paid subscriber-based newsletter, which is TDV GoldenTrader, and there we start to share more information with what I see with the individual companies and stuff like that. But a good starting point is the investinmj.com website. From there, a free newsletter, you can subscribe and get some more information. And then, if you're serious, there'll be other newsletters out there that we can take a look at.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Take care.
Ja, das war jetzt einmal ein kurzes Überblick über den Medical Marijuana Business. Er hat ja gerade die Unterschiede auch erklärt zwischen Kanada und USA. Also Kanada ist es auf Staatsebene noch illegal, aber einzelne Bundesstaaten haben das schon legalisiert. In Kanada kann man nur das Produkt, also ich würde es mal sagen, das Gras kaufen, währenddessen halt in Amerika vor allem auch die Produkte, Öle und auch Patches und so weiter gibt, die interessant sind natürlich gerade für eine Medika-Verwendung, dann, weil ein Arzt einfach lieber halt Produkte wie Öl oder auch Pillen oder eben solche Patches verkauft, weil er halt einfach dann besser feststellen kann, wie die Wirkung ist. Und da gibt es dann einfach auch Untersuchungen. Und das findet er halt ein bisschen schade, dass das in Kanada halt nicht so ist, aber er hofft halt, dass das kanadische Gesundheitsamt dieses Regeln ändern wird, dass das auch zugelassen wird. Was er jetzt investieren würde, er sagt, dass sowohl die Pflanzen züchten, als auch die was die verarbeiten, beziehungsweise auch die Produkte zur Verfügung stellen, damit überhaupt diese Pflanzen gezüchtet werden kann. Er spricht da teilweise von Softwareunternehmen, oder er hat auch einen Vergleich zum Goldsektor gemacht. Also die was die Schaufeln verkauft haben, haben eigentlich das beste Geschäft gemacht, nicht die was nach Gold gesucht haben. Also von daher ist es eine interessante Sache. Er hat auch seine Webseiten bekannt gegeben, investinmj.com. Dort können sich weitere Informationen finden über diesen Medical Marijuana Sektor. Ja, war einmal ein Startpunkt. Schauen wir mal, was da dementsprechend rauskommt und wie das auch sich in Deutschland entwickeln wird. Danke, tschüss.